Let's talk about what happened in New York now. The verdict. What was the verdict? The verdict was count 1, racketeering conspiracy. This is the RICO charge. Not guilty. Count 2, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion as to Cassie Ventura. Another serious charge. Not guilty. Transportation to engage in prostitution. Flying in the gigolos, right? Cassie Ventura, guilty. That's the least severe of all the charges. Next, count 4, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Jane, not guilty. Count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution. Again, flying in the prostitutes, guilty. That was it. Unbelievable day. Okay, we've got our people on the ground in the middle of it. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson is live in Boise, Idaho. He was in the courtroom for today's plea hearing. We're going to speak to him in a second. But first up, Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft joining us live from outside the federal courthouse in New York City. Kelly, great to see you. I know there were some things happening later in the day today after the verdict. Let's talk about where we are, what happened. Is Diddy locked up tonight?
Hi there, Vinny. Yes, he is. He is locked up tonight, but his attorneys made a very, in a way, convincing plea to let him out, but the judge did not agree. So they made an application to have him walk out of the doors behind us, and everyone thought that he might just do that, Vinny. So barricades were put up along the street. Police were gathered in front of the courthouse just in case the judge was going to let Sean Diddy Combs walk out of the courthouse today. So taking you back to earlier this morning, we then heard that there was a verdict. They continued their deliberations for the third day this morning, about 9 a.m. Eastern, and then about 10 a.m. Eastern, we heard there was a verdict. We made our way into the courthouse, and I want to talk about that overflow room in particular because so many media professionals, so many people have come from all over to watch this case. And so these rooms are crowded and packed with people. When that first not guilty verdict came down, Vinny, this was on that most serious charge, the racketeering conspiracy. The room erupted in applause, cheers and applause from so many people that were inside that overflow room in particular. So then the second count was read, also not guilty. Now the third count, this is for the transportation to engage in prostitution. He was found guilty on that. Fourth count, not guilty. And then again, the fifth count, the transportation to engage in prostitution. So acquitted on the most serious charges, Vinny, the racketeering as well as the sex trafficking, but then found guilty of the transportation to engage in prostitution. You're taking a look at a sketch of Sean Diddy Combs. This was after that verdict was read. You can see him down on his hands and knees praying. And then when that verdict was being read, I was looking at him, and he was nodding his head to the jurors as they were saying not guilty on several of those charges. So quite a scene inside this federal courthouse, Vinny, and just really interesting to watch this case. When we first started covering this case about 2 months ago, people were saying, if you're coming here, you're not going home. Talking about Sean Diddy Combs, talking about how if the feds are bringing you here, it's because they're going to get a conviction. Well, defense counsel said this is a major victory for them. But we do have a full screen made of what Sean Combs said to some of his family members. This was after the bail hearing in particular. So again, they were hopeful that he could be released today. The judge denied that request. And what he said to his family is this. He said, we're going to make it through this. I'll see you when I get out. He then blew kisses to the 2 rows in the courtroom that have been filled with his family and friends throughout the duration of this trial. He said, I love you all. Be strong. I love you, Mom. Vinny. So quite a day here in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you hear not guilty in a courtroom, you hear not guilty in a federal courtroom, it is absolutely shocking. It'll floor you. Let's talk about outside of court now, right? So it's a federal courthouse. There's no cameras allowed inside. So if people are going to speak, if things are going to happen, it's going to be outside of the courthouse. What happened today?
So then afterwards, defense counsel, his defense team made their way outside the federal courthouse, and they did give a news conference in which they did claim victory. And they talked about the Southern District of New York coming for Sean Combs with guns ablazing. We have a little bit of interview from Mark Agnifilo, excuse me. Let's go ahead and play that.
All right. Thank you all for being patient. Am I speaking loud enough? You all can hear me okay? All right. Today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens. And we had a wonderful jury. They listened to every word, and they got the situation right, or certainly right enough. They acquitted him of...
Yeah, you heard Mark Agnifilo there, Vinny, saying they got it right enough. So what's happening next? So on Tuesday, the attorneys and the lawyers are going to be meeting again to discuss sentencing. They had initially sent a sentencing date for October 3rd, but then Mark Agnifilo asked for an expedited sentencing. He even said to the judge that we want to waive the pre-sentence investigation report in which they would compile all the history and the background of Sean Diddy Combs. He said he was doing that, making that request to waive the PSI because the judge himself is going to be sentencing him, and he sat through this entire trial, so he knows already all about Sean Diddy Combs. They are going to look into that, Vinny, and they're going to make a decision on Tuesday as to what the next steps are for the sentencing of Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, and there'll be some discretion. They'll go through the federal guidelines, figure out where he lands based upon his background, based upon the offense, and then we'll see where it goes. But this is no doubt a victory for Sean Combs.